Good morning, everyone. My name is Maurcio Dinarte. I'm going to present a session about Drupal basics called Understanding Drupal. There is no need to type anything if you want. If you don't want to, in that URL you can have access to the slides. So let's get started. As I said in the morning, I am from Nicaragua. I am the Drupal community lead there. I also work for a company based in Boston, which also has offices in Germany and Nicaragua called Agaric. This is an overview of the things that we're going to cover today about Drupal. But before talking anything about Drupal, we're going to talk a little bit about web in general. So, does anybody know the difference between a web page and a website? Any clue? Yep. No one?
It's made up of many pages.
Okay, a website is made of many pages. That's right. So that is important to understand because sometimes we need to understand the difference between a page and a website. And that will become more important as we use Drupal as a building block to building websites and web pages. So just as an example, let's say we have a website called universityofminnesota.edu. Then that website can have a front page, which is usually denoted by just a slash, or it can have a about page, a theme page, services, articles, contact, and so on. So this website will have many pages, and each page is going to be identified by one URL. So that's one thing. Now, when we have a web page, we have different components. So for example, we can have sidebars, we can have the main content, we can have a header, we can have a footer, and so on. So the idea is that during this session, we're going to explain how to build each of this stuff using Drupal, and how, for example, everybody knows what is a menu, or what is a header, or what is a sidebar, but how does that translate to Drupal? And we're going to delve into that. So as I said before, feel free to interrupt me anytime, and let's get started. Why Drupal? These are some examples of sites that use Drupal. For one, we have the White House, weather.com, the Grammys, Web Economic Forum, examiner.com, and Naranja Tradicional de Gandia. So this site is from Spain. I think it's from Barcelona in particular, and they sell things. They sell oranges, tangerines, marmalade, lemons, and honey. So they build a Drupal website to power their business, and their business is selling these 6 products. So why do these organization or people use Drupal? For what? And also we have Tesla Motors. So the cars themselves do not run on Drupal, but the website is built on top of Drupal, so we're there. Why? For example, in the case of the White House, Drupal is secure. It is not bulletproof. You need to, apply the security updates and so on. But the important thing is that there is a dedicated team of people, making sure that Drupal is as secure as possible. And if a vulnerability is discovered, then they fix it as soon as possible and make it available for everyone. It is also, and particularly in Drupal 8, multilingual, in the sense you can have your website in English, Farsi, Spanish, or you can create your own languages, literally. You can also create websites, for e-commerce, like the example that I said before. That one, they sell 6 products and that's it. But we have very big sites, like stores with millions of products being built on top of Drupal. Drupal also can support a lot of traffic. So weather.com is the biggest Drupal site in terms of traffic, and it receives about 1 billion visits every month. So that is huge, and that is built using Drupal. Drupal also, and again, particularly in Drupal 8, it is very friendly and flexible for building responsive websites. So you can accommodate your design for a laptop, for a tablet, for a phone, or for a 4K monitor. So you decide. And Drupal is able to manage multimedia. So for example, for the Grammys, the day of the event itself, they broadcast the whole thing. They put videos, audio, images, articles, and so on. And that is powered by Drupal too. So those are some of the reasons why people choose Drupal. Now, what is Drupal? So depending on who you ask, Drupal is 3 different things. For one, Drupal is a CMS. So as a CMS, it is a content management framework. That is what CMS stands for. In that role, it allows many people to participate in the creation of content. This is very important. For example, if we all work for the same organization, there is no need for to have one set of credentials. Credentials is username and password. Each of us can have a different one. Why? Because let's say that I get mad and I try to do something that I should not do, then I put something in the website that shouldn't be there. But there is no way for the organization to know that it was me, because we're all sharing the same credential. It's one username and one password. So in Drupal, that is not necessary. You can have as many users as you need. And in addition to that, for example, if someone leaves your organization, you can disable that user and keep the content that he or she created. But that user won't be able to interact with your site anymore. In addition, it is possible to create publication workflows. For example, you can, if it is a newspaper, you have the journalist who writes the article, then there is an editor who cannot write articles but proofread and edit things that were created by journalists. But once they are done, they need a final approval for the article to go live to the paper, to the website. So then there is office manager, and that office manager review what the editor did, and if everything is okay, the only thing that person makes is publish to make it public. And you can have that is a very simplified workflow, but you can have as many levels and as many people interacting with the content creation process as you want. Also, you can create Drupal by default offers content revisioning. You have to turn that on, but in essence, that is it keeps track of all the changes made to the content. So, for example, in the example that I said before, if I put something incorrect on the website, Drupal will tell which user made the change, when, and exactly what was the change, word by word or image by image, whatever. It will keep track of everything that was modified. By default, it only tracks the last modification, but if you enable content revisioning, you will have a complete history. And for example, if there is something incorrect, you can go back or roll back to a previous revision, and the content will be updated to that point in time. And also, you can have granular access control. For example, if you have an e-commerce website and you have different type of clients, the one that buys you one thing every year, but you also have frequent clients, and you have distributors and so on. You want to present the same website exactly to everyone, except for the price of the products. You want to give benefits for those regular customers. So you can configure Drupal to present the same, everything the same, but the price of each product. So that is possible. Or you can be as granular as that, or you can block complete section of the sites. For example, if they don't have if they haven't registered to your site, for example. You can define that, and we're going to cover that when we talk about roles. Then Drupal is also a framework. We are not going to go deep into this, but basically it is you can use Drupal to build something that it wasn't intended for. For example, by default, Drupal wasn't intended to be an e-commerce platform, but some people wrote modules to enable that functionality. You can also use Drupal as a backend of your mobile application or your or a service that you are providing. So Drupal can be the content storage for your application. And also Drupal is a community. So over 2,000 countries, over 150 languages, over 30,000 contributors, and in Drupal.org, which is the official Drupal website, we have over 97 active users every day. And the fact that I am here, I am from Nicaragua, it's we are global. So Anywhere where you are, someone will be able to help you. Basic concepts. So these are the kind of things that we need to focus and pay a lot of attention because they are important to understand like everything else. So what is core? Core is the minimum required software that you need to have a Drupal website. When you go to Drupal.org and you see the big download button, what you get when you click that is Drupal core. So among other things, Drupal core contains modules and themes, and it also serves as a framework, to build on top of, as I said before. What are modules and what are themes? So modules add functionality to your website. Themes control the appearance of your website. For example, let's say that I have a blog. Every time that I write a new blog post, I want like a tweet to be sent or something to be posted to Facebook automatically. That is functionality. So that should be provided by a module. If on the other hand, like I want my website to look green, I want to use this type of fonts, I want to have this like slideshow and things like that. So anything that is visual, even like the responsiveness of the site, that is controlled by the theme. So modules add functionality, themes control appearance. Then we have the Contrib Repository. So as I said before, you can extend Drupal beyond what is, beyond core. Anything that is not core is Contrib. So, for example, that module to post to Twitter, that module to post to Facebook, or a contributed theme that has like the styles, the visuals that I want in my website, if it is not in core, if it is not in that package that I download at the beginning, that is Contrib. And for here about Legos, it is an analogy in that you have a lot of modules and you like put one on top of the other to build your website. So you assemble your website by combining Drupal core and a specific set of modules and themes that will solve your specific needs. Any questions so far? Okay. Content. So this is the word that is used mostly in Drupal, and it is also one of the most abstract concepts that we have. So what is a node? A node is a piece of information that can tell a story by itself. The node serves as a container of information used to describe something. For example, we have the photo of a car. What can we say about the car? We can say the color, the make, the model, the year. We can say what type of fuels it runs. We can say how many windows, how many doors, and so on. So in theory, we can use a node to describe this particular car. So, this sky is red, that plate is XYZ, and everything else. So the node is that container of information. This is an example of a Drupal node. In this case, it's a blog post. So every node in Drupal has the following properties. For one, they have a title. All of them have a title. Another thing, they have an author, and they have a publication date. All of the nodes have something that is called node ID, which is an internal identifier. It is a number, so the first node is node 1, the second is node 2, and so on. It increments by 1 every time. For example, you can use the node ID to access that content in a website. For example, if you have, if you write a blog post and you know that blog post is node ID 350, you can go to yoursite.com/node/350 and you get access to that content. But we humans are not good remembering numbers. So we have something that is called path alias. So instead of saying /node/350, we can have an alias, like in this case, /blogs/adding these results. So that is easier to remember. That is called a URL alias. So every node, in addition to the node ID, they can have a URL alias, and that will also allow you to access that content. It is not shown here, but nodes can also have publication status, So for example, if you start writing a story but it is not ready, maybe you need more information, you can set it to unpublished, and save, in theory, like save it as a draft for later. When you come back, you can continue writing the story, and if it's ready for publication, that status is changed. Another thing, it is not a requirement, but most of the notes have fields, and we're going to go over why fields are important later. But this block of information here, it is a field in Drupal. Now, it is important to understand that nodes can be used to store information about physical things and non-physical things. In the example before, we were describing a car. We can describe a university, for example, like how big is the campus. We can describe a house, like the square footage, how many bedrooms, how many bathrooms, and so on. We can describe physical things, but we can also describe abstract things. Like in this case, a node article, which I cannot touch. I can also describe, for example, an event. We can say where is the venue, when is the date, what is the cost of the event, and so on. So nodes are used for both describing physical and non-physical things. Well, I said the example about the car, but can I have more wheels? Yes. I can describe, in addition to the car, motorcycles, bicycles, and tricycles, and cars, and so on. So the next concept on top of nodes, it's content types. So a content type is an abstraction that allows you to group nodes which share similar characteristics or describe the same idea. Why do we have content types? Because the information that we're going to store is different from one object of the other. For example, in a car, I can say how many windows it has, but in a motorcycle, that doesn't make any sense because motorcycles don't have any windows. And in general, cars can go in reverse. As far as I know, motorcycles cannot go in reverse. So in the real world, those things are different concepts. So if in the real world they are different concepts, when you map that into Drupal, those should be different content types. So why? Because when you have a content type, they serve as a template to gather information. So for example, in the content type for cars, I will add for make, model, color, and so on. For the content type of event, I will add for date, venue, cost, and so on. So the content type is a template that I will use to gather the information that is relevant for me, for my site. And once collected, there is the management of the information, and we're going to see some example of how. Before going any further, I want to clarify something. Every node is of one specific type. You cannot have a node that doesn't have a type, and you cannot have a node that has two types. So one node, one content type. So for example, as I said before, nodes they have a node ID. So in this case, we have of the content type article 7 nodes, and the number represents the node ID. This is like an arbitrary example. We have a basic page content type, and we have 3 nodes of that type. And we have a car content type, and we have 2 nodes of that type. So for every node, they have an associated content type. It is possible that you can have a content type without nodes, but if that is the case, just delete the content type. You don't need that. Okay. How do content types allow me to make administration of my website easier? For one, I can apply a filter. For example, I want to show all the cars in this page. I want to show all the motorcycles in this page. I want to show all the blog posts, all the events. So, the first ways of filtering in Drupal is the content type. I can set nodes apart from each other based on the content type that they pertain to. But that is not enough. Here I have only cars showing. But what if I want to have a listing of all the cars that are red, or all the cars that are Toyotas, Yaris, 2015 onwards? What if I want to get all the cars that run on, that are electric or hybrid? So in the real world, objects have properties. Those properties become fields in Drupal. So when you need to make more filter in that content type, you use fields. So fields are used to structure the information that is being stored. They save discrete data which can be used for displaying, filtering, sorting information. It is possible to enter and display fields data in various ways. I don't know about you, but just reading that makes me feel boring. So let's see some examples. Who has used Facebook or Twitter before? Some of us. Okay. So in Facebook and Twitter, we get a box and we can write anything. We can write poems, we can write rants, we can write anything that we want. We are free to do it. The kind of problem that we have with Facebook and Twitter is that we have a single box to write everything. There is no way to say this information that, for example, if let's say that I have a car rental and I have a Facebook page. So I got a new car and I want to tell the world that I have that car available. So I wrote a Facebook post, and in that post I put year, make, model, price for renting per week, per day, and so on. But it's one box. There is no structure in that box. I can add some pictures, but pretty much that's it. I cannot control everything else. If I have 100 posts after that one, then someone who visits my Facebook page, they will have a really hard time trying to find that particular car, because they will have to go through the whole 100 new posts, and if there is no way for them to say, okay, I want to rent a car that is red and Corolla, Toyota Corolla. So in Facebook, there is no way to do that. Nor in Twitter. Twitter is even more limited. So in general, not only in Drupal, but in general in web development, this is called free text. And free text is not easily searchable. So if you have all your content in one blob, they are called blob, it will be really hard for Drupal to find that content. For example, if we use Drupal by default, it comes with a content type called basic page. The basic page, you have the title and you have something that is called the body. And the body, you write something. So if you put all the information in the body, if you put all the information in one box, there is no way that Drupal will be able to find that. It will be able to find if you specifically write the same thing, but it will not be able to parse that information and make queries I want all the cars that are red, that are Toyota, that are Yaris, that are 2015 onwards. There is no way for Drupal to do that, because free text is not easily searchable. You have to be Google, but we're not Google, so we have to deal with that. Another thing is that another problem with free text is inconsistent data. For example, if we are storing information about an event, we can, someone can enter November 19, 2015. Someone can the shortcut or the abbreviation for the month. Someone cannot use letters at all. They can use numbers. One can use dashes instead of slashes. One can use, for the year, 4 digits or 2. And, we're multilingual. So this is in the States. In the States, you put the month first and then the day. In Nicaragua, for example, you put first the day and then the month. So if you have free text, you are susceptible to for people entering information in this way, in inconsistent way. And that is also really hard to find. Also, people, if you have free text, they can enter invalid information. For example, how old are you? I am minus 10 years old. That is not possible. You cannot have a negative number as an age. When is your birthday? February 31st. No, that doesn't exist. Price. This one is not very clear, but if you bear with me, that is a dollar symbol, USD dollars, not a euro symbol. So you have a dollar symbol, but it says euros. So you are susceptible to that too. Email, not a real email.com. You need the @ sign, phone number. Hi, I am beautiful. So that doesn't make any sense. That isn't even a number. So all of these things are not easily searchable. And if we're building a website, we want our users or visitors to be able to find the information that they need. So all of these things make Drupal cry. How do you make Drupal happier? You use fields. Remember the boring explanation that I gave before? Now I'm going to give examples to make it clear. So for one, fields in Drupal can specify validation criteria. And there are different field types. We're going to see some examples next. But for example, here I have a number field, and here I have an image field. So for the number field, for one, I can say that the field itself is required. For example, if this is an e-commerce site, and I have a product, I want the product to be required. Otherwise, I want to make some profit, so they have to have a price. They cannot leave the price blank. So if I have one block of text, there is no way for me to know if the user entering the content set a price or not. But with fields, I can add a validation to make it required. And if someone tries to leave it empty, they will get an error, and they won't be able to save the product. That is, to create the product without entering the price field. So in addition to have it required, I can define like a minimum or a maximum. This works for numbers, so I won't have a price of -10. I am not giving away money. I am trying to collect money. I can have something for free, and that would be price 0. But negative numbers are not allowed. It is not necessary, but I could specify a maximum if I wanted. And then, like if I am selling here in Minnesota and nowhere else, we use dollars here. So there is no need to have the possibility to someone to enter euros or cordobas like in Nicaragua. So by default, it will be prepended by the dollar symbol and USD to make it very, very clear that we're talking about United States dollars. So this is possible because we're using fields. Fields allow me to specify validation criteria. In the case of an image, I can say if it is required or not. In this case, it is not required. But I can also specify which file types I'm going to support. For example, if I don't want people to upload animated GIF of cats doing crazy things, I just do not allow GIF. I mean, they can upload a static image of a cat, but they won't be dancing. So I just remove the GIF from there. I can specify minimum and maximum for the dimensions. I can specify maximum upload sizes and other properties. So this is possible because I am using fields. And as you can see, the properties of the number field are different of the properties of the image field. So fields allow me to overcome the limitations before. So instead of free text, when I use field, I can use the information stored in fields to make searches. Like for example, I can have a field, in the case of a car, I can have a field for the color, a field for the make, a field for the model. So any information that I have in field, it is searchable, it is sortable, I can filter that information. So I can use that content. So I want to filter by content type cars, by year, 2010 onwards, by make, Toyota, by model, Yaris, for example. And Drupal will search all the nodes of that type that match that criteria for those fields. So it is fields that make possible to find that information. And Drupal is happy now. Okay, what is the recipe to make Drupal happy? You will create a new field per each specific data that you want to store. And when I say when you want to store, think of it as any piece of information that you want to use for searching in the future. So if you want to allow your visitors to be able to find your content based on that information has to be its own field. And you can have as many fields as you want. And as I said before, there are different types. For example, integer refers to number without a decimal point. Decimal refers to numbers with decimal points. Images, phone numbers, emails, URLs, and so on. There are a lot of fields in Drupal. Okay, now that we understand that the purpose of fields, let's see some examples of other things that fields are able to do. So, as I said before, fields allow you to get information from the user and store it in a standard way so it can be used later for searching and other operations. But fields are also flexible in the way that they collect information. For example, let's imagine that we are creating a website for that has information about events, and we are storing the venue. So for the venue, we have some location on the planet. There are different ways to enter geographical information. For one, we can put like the address, we can put the latitude and longitude, we can present the user with a map and ask them to click on the map to start the information. Or, as we have PDF and Word documents and so on, there are some file types specifically used to store geographical information. One of those types is KML. So, in theory, this doesn't exist, but it is possible. In theory, I can have one single field that will allow me to enter information in all those formats. So I can, in 4 different ways, I can store the information, and the field will make sure to transform that and store it in a way that no matter how it enters, it will be able to do the operations described before. Now, once you collect the data, you can present it in any way too. Like, for example, you can collect that, the map information, the location information using latitude and longitude, but present it in a map. So the way that you get the information does not need to be the same like the way that you present it. Those can be different. And that is powered by fields. So fields, you have to check what options the field that you want to use provide, but it is possible for a field to get information in one way and to display it in another. And on top of presenting information, fields allow you to aggregate information. So, for example, if we can present a map, and each one of these okay, let's break it down. Each one of these is a node of type event, and they have a field. The content type event has a field to store venue, and that venue is some geographical information. So once we collect all the information, we present it in a map like this. And for you to know, these are categories. So we can also have, in the same event content type, another field for category. And depending on the category, we can change the color of the marker that we're going to present. That is the example, but actually this is a really useful website called Drupal. You can go to drupal.com, and then you get events all around the world. So if you want to go to an event nearby, you can get information there. Another thing that it is possible to do, fields can be shown or hidden individually. Remember when I said that you have access, access control? Well, you can, for example, for the content type field, for the content type cars, I want to show everything except for the plate. Let's say that the plate should not be public. That is information only relevant in my website, and I want to expose that information for any purpose. So if I have that as a separate field of the content type, when I'm going to present the content type, per field I can say show or hide. So that is also possible with fields. If we have everything in one blob of text, there is no way to say remove the second line, remove the third line. No, it's all or nothing. But when we have fields, we can manually per field say show or hide. These are some example field types. So this would be a text field type. This, where it says established in 2006, that is actually a number. So this is let's use this example. This is a content type to store information about organization or companies. So every content type is a template for a node. So every node has a title. When it says Agaric, that is the title of the node. But that is also a field of type text. When it says established in 2016, we want to store information about a year. A year is an integer, so that is actually an integer field. But remember that we can have prefixes and suffixes. So when presenting that information, I configure Drupal to have a prefix of established in, and then the integer number that the people entered, that the user entered. So in this way, I can be certain that everything will be a number, and that I will have this string prepended. Also, because this is a number field, I can say, for example, I don't want to store any information of companies before 2000. So I can make a restriction using the field validation that the minimum value that they can store is 2000. Anything before that will trigger an error and won't be, Drupal won't allow the user to create that organization, because I only care from 2000 onwards. So this is a number field with a prefix, and possibly it can have like validation criteria. The other text below, that is a multi-line text field. In Drupal, there is a difference between a single-line text field and a multi-line text field. And usually, it is not necessary, but usually this is reflected when you have a multi-line text field, you are presented with something that is called WYSIWYG editor. Sort of like Microsoft Word, where you have the buttons for bold, italics, underline, and so on. So for multi-line text field, you will usually, that can be changed, but usually you will be presented with a toolbar on top of the text area with buttons to choose something, to give a style to your content. So in Drupal, there is a difference between a single line and a multi-line text field. You can also have URLs, emails, phone numbers, dates, and they will make a validation. You can also have time. These are called tags, which is like for categorization. We're going to talk about that later. But these are only some examples of what you can do with Drupal fields. And why is this important? Because when we are assembling a website, we need to understand what goes where. Not like 80% of the time, there are other possibilities, but 80% of the time, the main content of the website is a node. So in this example, this, in the center, that would be the node. It will have a title, it will have a field that stores an image, and it will have a field for date, and more fields for more information. But the main content of the site, it will be the node. Things on the site are something else that we're going to explain later. But most of the time, the main content of the website is a node. So that is why it is important to understand what a node is, and all the associated concepts. For example, this will be a node of a specific content type, and that content type will have a set of fields. So that is how this specific page is going to be built. Everything around that, it's called a block, and we're going to talk about blocks next. But before going to that, any questions so far? Okay. If there are no questions, what are blocks? Blocks are containers of extra information to display along the main content of your websites. They are placed in a theme region. So we're going to talk more about blocks, but before that, a little detour on what is a theme region. When you install Drupal by default, you get it like in a blue shade. So every theme, remember that themes control appearance. Every Drupal site has to have one theme active for the visitors. So that theme has something that is called theme region. Those regions are like placeholder where you can put information or where you can put content. So the one that comes with Drupal by default, the theme is called Birtdate, and that theme called Birtdate provides these regions. For example, and this is controlled by the theme, not all the regions will have content. When a region doesn't have content, depending on how the theme was configured, it can be collapsed. That means that all other regions that are next to it will expand to occupy that space. For example, if I have a website where I have the main content and I have a left sidebar, but I don't have a right sidebar, Drupal won't waste that space. The content region will expand to occupy that space. If I don't have any sidebar, the content region will expand to occupy the full width of the page. But again, that depends on the theme. For example, this same theme, I have this in the footer like 4 columns. If I place any content in the first column and I don't place any content in the following 3, the first column will not expand automatically. Like for the footer, it will occupy 25% of the space always, no matter if there is content in the other regions or not. So it depends on the theme, how it is configured, but usually Drupal makes sensible defaults. And for example, there is a feature tab that is not very clear here, but it has a gray background. When you go to a freshly installed Drupal, you won't see any gray background. Why? Because that region doesn't have any content. So Drupal automatically collapses that one, and you don't see anything gray with a gray background. So when you place content, you will see the gray background and so on. So that is a theme region. You place blocks into theme regions, and blocks can have some properties. For example, they can be static or dynamic in the content that they present. A static block is one that displays the same information always or almost always. For example, if you have a copyright text in your website, like copyright 2016, that will change once a year. So in nature, that content is static. Or for example, for this Drupal camp, we have sponsors and we want, we are grateful for them. So we put a banner of their company logo in every web page. So we can have like a blog that displays an image of a sponsor of our website, and that image will be the same always. So that is a static content for a blog. But also, blogs can have dynamic content. For example, if I am writing a blog post, I can, like if I write a blog post every day, I can have a blog that says latest blog post, then that will be changing daily. If I have a store, and I can have a blog that says latest product, and if I have products every week that will be changing. So depending on the nature of the content, blogs can be either static or dynamic. Blogs can also enforce visibility rules. So for example, you can configure a blog, but display that blog only when you are visiting a node or of a specific content type. For example, if I have a content type called articles, that article will have an author. So I can have a blog that says more articles by the same author. But for example, if I have in the same website another content type called events, it doesn't make any sense to have a blog that says more articles by the same event, because events do not write articles. So I can have a blog and with a visibility rule that says only show for the content type blog post or article. So I can do that. I can check more than one, but that's flexible. I can also do it by language. For example, only show this blog in the Spanish version of my website or in my English version of my website. I can do it by pages. For example, I want to show this blog only on the front page, or only in the contact page, or everywhere except in the services section of my website. So that can be dynamic. You can be specific, like a specific URL or a URL pattern. For example, everything that starts with /services/ something else, I don't want this blog to appear there. So either a specific URL or a pattern. You can also do it by rows. We're going to cover rows later, but you can also specify visibility rules based on rows for blogs. Blogs can also be aware of their content. So they can use information from the page that they are going to be rendered to modify the content that they are going to display. Like, for example, more posts from the same author. So when Drupal renders that blog, it will say, okay, I'm going to be placed in this theme region, but I need information about the author to show more information related of that author. So it will grab the author of that node, and then it will perform the operation, in a database to look for more articles written by the same person. Or if we're selling vehicles, we can say more vehicles on sale in the same city, for example. So I am viewing a specific car, but I say you might also be interested in these others, and these others are cars in the same city, for example. And this is new in Drupal 8. In D7, it was also possible with a module called beans, but in Drupal 8, this comes out of the box. Blocks can have fields. So in the same way that content types can have fields, now blocks can also have fields. So for example, you can have a special offer block with the following fields: a title, a description, an image, and an expiration date. So when you create a block of this type, it will be placed on your right sidebar, for example, until the expiration date is, until you reach that date. So you will present the title, the description, and the image until you reach that date. So with D8, we have fields for blocks. And in D7, you have to use a module called beans. Any questions so far? Okay. Views. What is a view? A view is a listing of information. Every time that you're going to make a listing of something, it will very likely be a view. A view will scan your website, and based on content types or field information, it can filter out the information that you're going to present. And once you have defined the information that you're going to present, you can choose how you're going to present it. For example, you can present an HTML table, or using a view, you can create a PDF document, or an Excel document, or a CSV, or a map, or a JSON file. Views allow you to collect information using different criteria and present it in different ways. So an example of this, following the car example, I have, let's say, 50 cars. I am only showing 5 here, but I have 50 cars in this website. And I have a column when I show the plate, the make, the year, the make, and the model. As you can see, they are all in one line, but there is not necessarily that is a single field. I can have a field for the plate, for the year, for the make, and the model. And when I am assembling the view, I can concatenate them or make them display together, even though they are different fields in the content type. So views is really flexible. Then I can show the image, I show the color, the type of transmission, and the type of field. So in this case, I decided to show a table, but I can also have a PDF or any of the other formats. And another thing, that when you have a table, you can the header row of the table can be sortable. So for example, we'll have in this case, if we click on color, for example, we can sort alphabetically by color. Or if we have numbers, we don't have here, but if we have a column for numbers and we click on it, we can sort alphabetically by number. So I can configure the view to show a table, and the headers of that table will be sortable. It is not shown here because this image is cut, but if I can say show 10 cars at a time. If I have 25 cars or 50 cars or more than 10, Drupal will show something that is called a pager, which is basically numbers and next and previous button. So I will be showing 10 at a time or 15 at a time, however I configure it, but I will have okay, I'm showing the first 10, I click, going to the next 10, I click, going to, and so on. When I configure a view, I had the chance to specify what content type and what field criteria is going to be matched. But I also have the chance to specify the default order. For example, I don't know, let's say that this is ordered by year descending. So 2014, 2013, 13, 11, 8. Let's say that instead of sorting by that, I want to sort by something else. I could do it. But in a way, I specify default sorting. I can expose, and these are called exposed filters. I can expose some functionality to the user so they can override that. In addition of the headers being sortable, I can say sort by year, ascending, sort by year, descending, or sort by any other field that I configure, like ascending or descending. And also I can modify the set of information that is going to be presented using filters. For example, if I use the year filter, I can say, show me only cars of 2014, the make, show me only BMW, and model something else. So I provide a default, default information, but I keep the possibility for the user, for the visitor of my website, to change that. And here on the left, we have one car. That is also a view. Before I said that views are used, for list of things. There are some occasions where it makes sense to have a list of only one element. For example, in this case, it is a random car. So every time that I refresh the page, I configure the view to randomly show a different car. I can also have a view that says latest car, or latest book, or latest product, or latest something. When you have the latest, or the greatest, or the biggest, or random, then you can configure a view to show only one element. And when you configure the filters, the filter criteria and the sorting criteria, you make it in a way that it will output the result that you're expecting. So in some occasions, you can use views to build listing of only one element. Now, why so much theory? This is boring already. So, it is important because Drupal loves nests. We love nesting. We love nesting markup for the people who is front-end developer. We also, for the backend developers, we have arrays that has many levels dips. If you're not either of those, you're the rest of us. We like to nest concepts. So we can have, for example, for the more articles by the same author blog, the blog needs to be placed in a theme region. The blog is a blog, so within the theme region I have the blog. The blog was created using a view. The view is a listing of nodes, and I am presenting different fields of that node. So, in one simple case, like more articles by the same author, I am nesting 5 different concepts. And if we go here, let's say that is only this blog, and I have a lot of blogs, a lot more blogs than that. So for each one of those, I will have to understand how the site was built, what concepts were there, because if I want to modify how it is presented, I need to know, is it a view, is it a node, is it a field? I need to know what type of concept I am working with to modify it in a way that I want. And for example, it is possible that a block is not created by a view. I can create a block manually, and that will be a theme region block. Or I can have a view that instead of a list of nodes, it will be a list of users of my websites. So that is a different concept. So I can mix and match this in any way that I want. And that is why it is important to understand all of these concepts to be able to work with Drupal effectively. I mean, you can do it without understanding this stuff, but once you get how Drupal works internally, it will be easier. And there are different, for you to have a sense, this is the administration page, so content types are administered in one place, views in a different place, taxonomies, menus, content types in different places. Why I bring this up? Because in other sessions or other times that I have presented these sessions, people get confused a node is a node a view, is a node a content type, is a node, so they think that they will have to go to one place to configure everything, and that is not the case. For each one of these concepts, you will have a different page in Drupal to administer that information. And that is also why it is important. Okay, I am dealing with a view. I have to go to the views administration page. I am dealing with a node. I am going to the node page. I am dealing with a content type. I'm going to the content type administration page, and so on. Any questions so far? Okay, because we are expert in Drupal now, I am going to shift, like fly through the rest of the slide. The previous concepts were the most important. These are really simple. A user is a visitor of my website. So anyone that comes to my website is a user. Again, like nodes, users have like a title. They can have a bio or description. They can have an image. They can specify a time zone. If I am building a website, with a calendar and events worldwide, I can, okay, this event is happening at 11 a.m. EST, but I live in Minnesota. So if myself as a user have Minnesota as my time zone, then Drupal automatically will change the time to reflect in my local time. So I can, for every user, I can have like a time zone, and for every user, I can also have like a language. So if the website is available in English and in Spanish, and I speak Spanish, I can configure that for the website to appear in my language. If I speak Farsi and the language is not available in Farsi, then it will go to a default one that is set by the administrator of the website. Users also have like nodes, node ID, but in case of user, it is called user ID. So it is also a number, but because we are not good remembering numbers, we also have URL aliases for users. Users have roles, and a role is a collection of permission. Users Drupal by default ships with 3 roles: anonymous user, authenticated user, and administrator. Anonymous user is anyone without an account in your site, without username and password. Authenticated is everyone with username and password. Administrator is someone with superpowers. So, but you can create more roles depending on your organization. For example, you can match the hierarchy of your organization, like the department that you have, using different roles. And you can say, you are assigned, Paul. Paul is assigned to the accounting department, so he gets assigned the accounting role, and the accounting role has permissions to do this set of operations within the website. John is in the finance department, so he gets assigned that permission, and he has a different set of operation or permission on the website. So you can have as many roles as you want. Don't get crazy, because the more that you have, the more administration that you will have to maintain. Like it's a burden. So a collection is a role is a collection of permission. What is a permission? A permission is a check if a user can perform a specific action. For example, can a user create a node of type article? Can a user revert revisions of that content type article? Can the user post comments? Can the user use the site-wide contact form? So this is a yes/no question. If that permission, if the users have that permission, they can either do or not do that operation. And this is how it works. For example, if you want John to have access to create articles, how do you do it? You have permissions, you group those permissions into a role, and you assign that role to Paul or to John. So it is not like directly. You don't specify permission per person, it is per role. So you for a role, you set what permissions are available for this role, and then you assign that role to the person. And this is like a many-to-many relationship. So one role can have many permissions, one user can have many roles, and when a user has more than one role, the permission that user will have is the sum of all the permissions provided by the different roles assigned to them. Menus are a collection of links used to navigate the website. They can be as simple as this or as crazy as this. Like you can have different submenus or different levels. You can have videos and stuff This is a module called TV Mega Menu. This comes out of the work with Drupal, but menus are used to navigate your website. Taxonomy is a scary word, but it is simply used for categorization. It allows you to connect, relate, and classify content of your website. And the only two things you need to learn about taxonomy is vocabularies and terms. Those are the only two words. So, what is a vocabulary? The vocabulary is a container. Similarly to a node that is a container of information, a vocabulary is a container of terms. So, a vocabulary contains taxonomy terms. In this case, I have a vocabulary called fruits. So that vocabulary has the terms apple, strawberry, orange, and grapes. As you can see here, in addition to the name itself, I also have an image. So taxonomy terms can also have fields. So we start reusing the same concepts. Nodes can have, content types can have fields, user can have fields, taxonomy terms can have fields. And everything that I said about fields applies to all of these things. You can have validation criteria, different types, and so on. So you have that. In addition, to this, vocabularies can be hierarchical. So this is a vocabulary about living organism classification. So we are supposed to be animals in the chordata phylum, in the chrono something class, and like deep there, we are humans. So a real life example of this is for animal categorization. So we can have a vocabulary with all of these in kingdom, subkingdom, all the way to species. So in another real life example, we can use vocabularies for listing every piece of information tagged with a specific name, a specific term. For example, I can have a term for events, for, let's say, events in this campus. So I can have 100 events, but only 10 are tagged with this campus. When by default, Drupal make those terms a link, and when I click on them, it will take me to a page where it will show every node of the site, no matter the content type, that is tagged with that specific term. I can also show related information. For example, I can show articles that have the same tags. I can create editorial workflows based on tags. For example, I can have a vocabulary to match the hierarchy of my organization, and I can use that vocabulary to set permissions or access to the website. Or I can use, because I can add fields to taxonomy terms, I can have a field that stores geographical information. So, for example, I can have a vocabulary of counties in the United States, and each county has like an associated geographical information, latitude and longitude. Then I can show a map, and I'm showing a map based on terms, but because the terms have a field to store geographical information, I can put that information on a map. So it is very flexible. And again, it is important because we encapsulate a lot of concepts. So that's it. Any question? Okay. Well, thank you for being here.